Hey, welcome to the My Villain Era podcast. I'm Victoria. I'm your host. And around here, we are standing up for ourselves. We're saying no, we're setting boundaries, and we're doing all this even if it makes us the bad guy. So today I have my good friend, Billie Joe Pitonyak on, and we're going to be talking about trusting your inner knowing. So let me tell you a little bit about Billie Joe. Billie Joe has been a social media consultant for a while, but she is also that person that's going to help you with visibility. So if you're someone that you're like, have that yikes kind of feeling in regards to showing up on social media and what am I going to say and all those things, Billie Joe is a great resource for you. And I'm going to put the links for how to contact her and work with her and stuff like that in the description. Welcome, Billie Joe. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into our topic for today?
Hey everyone. So Victoria and I crossed paths about 2 years ago, actually in a networking group, but we never connected truly until social media. And that's what I tell everyone, how powerful social media is. Just because you're in the room with them, you don't really get to know them until there's like another connection. And I just believe that there's so many avenues social media can take you, whether it be business, whether it be a friend, maybe it's a mentor that you've been needing. And so I just think the sky's the limit whenever it comes to social media. And this is just a perfect example of that.
I love that. And it's so true. You have so many friends that you met through social media. But I even think about, I just hired a new business coach. I have never met her face to face. I know her through a particular Facebook group. And even though I've known her for several years, it's like I've never met her face to face. I think she's coming to Texas sometime this year, but we shall see. So this was social media is so powerful. So today, Billie Joe and I wanted to talk to you about trusting your inner knowing and how this is such an important topic. Before we get into our topic, this episode is sponsored by yours truly. I'm hosting a workshop in September called You Already Know the Next Step, because you do. And frequently we ignore our intuition, and we're going to be talking about how to tap back into that inner knowing. So I'm going to put the link for that in the description. But this is actually something that Billie Joe and I talk about all the time, is trusting your inner knowing, because sometimes it seems crazy. And Billie Joe, I don't think I've ever told you this story. So 2019, we had just moved. In 2018, we moved from Washington back to California. My stepson was in high school and he's very close with his dad. And we just thought that was the best move for us at the time. And I'm in the car, and you know how I am, Billie Joe. I'm in the car and I'm driving. And I said to my husband, we're going to move to Texas. This is 2019. And my husband was like, we just moved across the country. Like, what are you talking about? And I said, I just feel like we're going to live in Texas. And then in January of 22, we moved to Texas. So that's just one example of how listening to your inner knowing, it can sound crazy sometimes. It's the thing that's like sounds totally bonkers. It's never the thing that sounds good on paper. You know what I mean?
One thing that comes to me, and I always feel like, this journey, the people that we attract, it goes back to being like the weird kid on the playground. Like you kind of knew what the day held without knowing what the day held, right? Like you just had this inner knowing, as like you just kept that trapped inside for all these years because it just felt different. Like if you told somebody, yeah, I knew something was going to happen this afternoon, or somebody was going to come visit me, or like you just have this inner knowing. You feel like the weird kid. You don't ever want to tell anybody. But as you get older and you quiet that, as a kid, it's kind of loud. You get those feelings, like you might have a feeling your mom's going to pick you up early from school, or you have this surprise coming. But as you get older, I feel like with society and stuff, it's like just, quiet her down. And as you get older, it's like you still have it inside of you, but you don't trust it. And that's what it was for me, is I just kept having these certain things that would occur in my life. And I would question, like, is that real? And I would tell you, this happened, and you were like, and it happened for a reason. You need to trust that. And it has brought so much, like even shifts in my business, people that I work with. Before it was, I just accepted whoever would come to me because wanted to save them all. If they needed help with their
Mhm.
business, or that's what I wanted to do. And something that happened recently is, used to, people would say, "Can I pick your brain?" I'm like, "Absolutely. What time? Let's do that."
Yes.
And in my gut, I'm like, I've just wasted 4 hours. And then you build up resentment against it. And they go hire a VA from overseas and try to implement what you just taught them, what you just shared to them. And so I've had it there, but now it is very bold. I'm not going to allow somebody to just pick my brain. It leads to me feeling resentful and kind of having a grudge against that person. Sometimes it's your friend, but you just have this inner knowing of like, that doesn't align and it doesn't feel right. But society says that you need to be kind and you need to help each other out, which is okay until you spend a
Mm.
lot of time helping them and then you get nothing in return.
Yeah. I had a similar experience back when I was still like trying to fit into a certain box and I was doing financial consulting. I had a friend who was having an event around wealth. Okay. She comes to me, she asks me all the questions and about the event. What do you think about this or that? And I just assumed she was going to ask me to participate in some way. And I kind of forgot about it. And then like a month or two later, I get an email from her inviting me to pay $200 for a ticket to her event. And you're right. It like there is such resentment. I actually saw her on social media the other day and it still stung a little bit. I was still like, And you know what our friend Danny Moniz says about that? She's like, if it still stings, you're still sending energy to them. So I'm always like, I always think about that. So I was just thinking about that this week. That's like, I should really let that go. So, but yeah, I mean, the thing that's so interesting about what you were saying is if you think about it, we all have this innate inner knowing in us. And some of us have an inner knowing about like how things work, how plants grow, what happens, like the dynamics between other people. We all have our gifts, but I think that society has put us all into a little box. And I honestly think, like, I'm going to get all conspiracy tinfoil hat on you. When the Rockefellers decided to like build what is our current education system, it really was like, let's put everybody in a box and the kids have to be taught to sit down. Everybody can be a good little worker, but some of us just aren't built that way. And so I think that's why it's even more important than ever to listen to that inner knowing because that's your superpower.
Yeah. What comes to mind is how people will say you need to niche down, but you have all these gifts that you want to help people. I think about you with your recipes and how your teas, and you have all these modalities that you use essentially to help people in your workshop. Can you imagine if you just solely focused on your workshop and you're going to use all these modalities to help the person because you're going to, tailor it to what is best for them, but that person's not going to fit in a box. And God's given you all these gifts to use. And so that's one thing whenever people say like, feel like I need to niche down. Okay. And do what with the rest of the stuff that God's gifted you with.
Oh my gosh, that's such good advice. So, okay, so for someone who has like really differing things that they focus on, like this is what I've heard is that in regards to social media, you should have one account for everything that you're into because then the algorithm is like, oh, this thing's like they make recipes and then this person, talks about that. So the algorithm doesn't get confused. But if you post a bunch of things about like various topics, that the algorithm gets confusing.
It can, but I think the most important thing is consistency and something. So I shared a video yesterday about an experience that I had, and it's completely different than any of my other content. But one thing that came to me from trusting myself is that, and listening to that inner knowing, is that people want to know you. Like you might make really great recipes, but if they don't know you as a person, where's that connection going to create? and that is where that trust and relationship builds, is from sharing your story. And I actually talked to one of our friends yesterday, and she said, Billy Joe, one thing that I realize about you is you know everybody's story. Like, I can ask you about somebody and you can tell me a story behind them. And she said and so she has incredible content and she does all the things. And I said, you're right. I know you as a person, but I don't know a whole lot about you. Like, what
Mhm.
got you to where you're going and why? And so yesterday, as we were leaving, she said, one thing I want next is for you to be able to describe who I am to somebody.
Wow.
Because I think there's so many pieces. You had your own personal experience with, what has prompted you to do the workshop. If you only focus on that workshop and you don't share the history behind what led you there, how are you going to attract the people that are in a similar boat?
Gosh, that's such a good point. And you know what I think is really beautiful about your view of social media is it's not just like some people are like, it's a tool to make money. And for you, it's like, no, this is about connection with other people. But yes, we can make money at the same time. So I really love that.
Um,
Go
I
ahead. What were you going to
wanted
say?
Okay, so I actually had a conversation yesterday, and this lady said, I need to be in more rooms and network. Because I'm posting on social media, I still need to be in rooms. And she said, but I don't love networking. And I'm like, social media is a gold mine. Literally, the sky is the limit. You can make connections all around the world. And it's really, I think there's an energy behind it. If you're scared of being visible and stuff, everyone feels it. It's not going to really get to where people, where your audience is. But when you just show up vulnerable and unauthentic, it's going to happen. And I will tell you, do you remember the day that we did that impromptu video in the parking lot? There was no
Yes.
edits. So many people messaged me about it, and I'm like, I don't even know that I brushed my hair that day. But it's true. There's an energy behind your content. And whenever you're using AI to like script everything and so forth, people kind of feel it and it gives that inauthenticity. It kind of separates the two. So I just feel like showing up as you, getting in those rooms on social media. I can't tell you, I literally have met so many incredible people. Thank God I've never met anybody that isn't a good fit for me, because I've met so many people. I've met my clients through, other people on social media, referrals. I have went and I joined that Bible study. I didn't know any of those ladies. The content crawl, I didn't know any of those ladies, but I will say they're such a big, impactful part of my journey. And it all
Mm.
started with social media. So I don't believe if those rooms don't feel comfortable, there's a reason for that. And it's just like you have been sharing, trust that. But maybe there's something underneath that you need to tend to about sharing your story.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that's really interesting about social media is a lot of people curate this content and it looks so beautiful. And so I have like done a lot of different things in my the like long life I've had, right? But here's what I found that was so interesting is that when I was posting, I haven't posted on my food blog in a hot minute, but when I was posting really consistently, and I was trying to like, I was seeing all these other people that had this beautiful curated content, but their face was never in the picture. They never talked about like, how does this food make you feel? Which I think is really interesting. So what I started doing when I started the villain era Instagram, I actually didn't I didn't want to, I mean, you know the whole story, but for those who don't know, I actually didn't want to start that Instagram. What happened, and the podcast came about from it. But what happened was I had this really impactful spiritual experience where God told me that I need to document my experience on Instagram. And I go, but I don't wanna. And like, but again, it's like trusting that inner knowing, like, okay, I can sit here and like argue with God about it, like see how that goes. Or I can just say, okay, I'm just going to go with it. And so one thing I started doing was doing videos like in my car. Most of my videos are like in my car or now they're like in my bedroom. When I feel like there's something that I need to say and I try really hard to trust. And even some days I have no idea what to say. I'll just say like, God, tell me what is it that you want me to tell people? And sometimes it sounds a little bonkers. I had one video that surprisingly enough, like I was like, people aren't going to make the connection. Like they're just not going to get it because of how it was structured. So it's talking about how when you're people pleasing, you might have a hard time manifesting because you're not focusing your energy on you. You don't even know what you actually want. Your energy is scattered and focused on other people. And I think I got like 2,000 views, which was a lot for me. But I actually didn't plan on doing that video at all. I had just finished doing a podcast with someone and I thought, you know what? I really feel like I need to talk about how the energy behind being a people pleaser is so important. And I think it's that intention, like when we set the intention to, okay, what gifts can I share with people? Like, how can I do that? That again, you're going to get signs. Your inner knows to be like, all right, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
share this thing. So, but if you're closed off to hearing it, I think it can be really hard. And I was for a long time because I was, like you mentioned, I was following and checking all those boxes, right? I was like, okay, bachelor's degree, had a career, I got a master's degree, married, had my boy. And then, but I really wasn't listening to my inner knowing for a long time. So I think that sometimes with our human brains, we make things a little bit harder than they have to be.
Yeah. One thing that comes to me is I sometimes just have to think about like, this is my head and this is what it thinks, but what does my body feel? And like
Mm,
literally separate the two because it can really get chaotic trying to manage your emotions, especially whenever you're making a huge pivot in life. Your mind wants to tell you, like, that's not comfortable. Your body's like, I've been telling you this for years.
yeah.
And so, yeah, sometimes I just have to separate the two and see, what's taken toll, what's leading the way. Is it truly my body or is it my mind telling me all these stories they're not true?
Yeah. And I would like to say that it was my idea, but I was listening to a video from Sonia Choquette and she said like your intuition happens from like here down, from
Okay.
your neck down. And
Mm,
that which is true because like your body tells you, like you can feel it in your gut when something
mhm.
feels off, but it's our brain that messes us up. Like our brain's always like, but that looks like the good thing to do. But I think a lot of it's like habit and repetition and pattern recognition that our brain's like, oh, but this is what we should be doing.
Yeah. And no one will think you're weird because
Ooh,
what you're feeling you should do sounds really bonkers. But, so if you just stay safe up there and do what, everyone else thinks would be normal. I mean, I am literally, I don't want to say I'm the black sheep of the family, but I'm the one that has left town, like, been on my own, all the things. And my siblings just kind of refer to me as like the unique little sister because I didn't do, I mean, my sister always says, this is what I get for having a sister 17 years younger. Like, what is she going to do? It's just so different than what other people in my family have done. But I'm okay with that. Used to, I would be like, should I do that? What is everyone else going to think? I got to a realization about a year ago is that people's opinions don't pay my bills. And I just don't
really?
care anymore. Like, I mean, I care. I care about my own well being, but I really don't care what outside people think.
Well, that's such a good point. Other people's opinions don't pay my bills. That's so true. I think that we can get so wrapped up. I mean, I say we. This has been me for a long time and getting wrapped up in what other people think. And as a recovering people pleaser, it's like that's a really hard habit to break, but it's a habit, you know?
Yeah. I know you probably watch Aaron Doughty, but that's one thing. I just did one of his 4-day things, and it's really about approval from our parents and their caregivers that we had, like getting back to those, trying to fit in a mold to please them. It
Mm,
can go into a relationship, just trying to do the right thing because that's what we had to do in childhood. I mean, like you were saying in school, we had to sit down and be quiet. Do you know how many times I had my desk moved? A lot. And I still found places to talk.
My gosh. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it seems like in our society, we get rewarded in some way by following the crowd, right? But what I noticed when I was in corporate America, fancy job, I had to wear high heels, which I hated. I was like, now if I don't wear sneakers, like it's like, that's a big deal. But I always wore high heels and the suit and all of that stuff. I think about that now, and that seems like just miles away because for some reason I thought that all those things added up to what I should be doing in life. But I also think that what I should be doing in life doesn't necessarily make me happy, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing. I think we need to really forgive ourselves for things like, maybe we stay in a relationship or a job or something for so long. I really think that just giving yourself grace, it served a purpose for that time. And maybe it was longer than it should have been, but you have moved past that, and you see where you want to be versus where you were. Because some
Yeah.
people, they do stay conditioned and they stay in that area of life that just makes them miserable. And as we know, it traps in our body and leads to other, issues later on. Maybe it's not
Yeah.
necessarily, your income, but it's in your body. And if you aren't healthy, then you can't fully show up and be yourself because you've got these other issues.
Yeah, I mean, that's what is so interesting about really doing the internal work to improve yourself is that, when I first started getting into self-improvement and part of it was like, yeah, I want to manifest $1 million or whatever. It sounds so great, but like the reality of it is that yeah, self-improvement is great. Yeah, like making more money is great. Like all of that stuff sounds fantastic. To get there, you also have to figure out your feelings and acknowledge them. You have to realize that emotions that you haven't processed are stuck in your body. You have to work through like all of the junk that comes up. So I think it's so interesting. It's like some people kind of get stuck on the self-improvement train for a long time. I think that we need to remind ourselves that and starting out this year, I listened to this video about this 5 million times. And of course, it was so interesting. I couldn't find it the other day. I was like, well, I guess I'm not meant to listen to it. But the woman was saying, she was like, stop wandering around in this life thinking there's something wrong with you. Maybe there's nothing wrong. Maybe it's just that your body knows, your soul knows. Maybe you need to give your brain a break for a second and just listen.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine your whole body is doing tug of war? You want to do this.
Oh,
Society
yeah.
says this, and your body wants to do this. That's a wrecking your nervous system. I mean, especially when
Mhm.
your inner knowing says one thing and literally you're letting whoever you put on a pedestal say, like, you need to be doing this.
Yeah.
That's not an alignment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of your favorite ways to tap into that inner knowing that we're talking about?
Putting my hand on my heart and on my stomach and just pausing and grounding and just listening what is coming up. Sitting for me is hard. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I have had to create spaces that allow that, whether it be put a bunch of pillows in a corner of my room and light an incense and just take that time for myself. Because, and the thing is, the more you do it, the easier it gets. I've noticed that.
Mhm.
It just, versus sitting there playing tug of war with the things in your mind, it's like, oh yeah, that's clear. Like that's not for me. And it gets
Yeah.
so much easier versus sitting and pondering and like, I mean, you sit on these business ideas for years and you should be doing them.
Yeah.
And all it is that back and forth of like, what are they going to think? What if it fails? All these things. And I feel like as we get older, we get more wisdom, but the more that we work that muscle, we start to trust ourselves and it gets so much easier. And it's just like showing up online. None of my stuff is perfect. I am not going to ever be that scripted person that has like a perfect message. But that's how I'm going to, and that's how I do attract who is meant to work with me. I don't want polish, but I also feel that that is where that connection starts, like trusting yourself, who you're supposed to work with, your message, it resonates with them. All those things start to align.
I love that. Yeah. I think that for me, the biggest thing is asking for guidance. And it's like when I ask for guidance, it's like the something is turned on. It's like my body's ready to receive, my brain knows that I'm going to receive information. Like I find that when I'm particularly like feeling squirrely about something, I'm like, okay, give me the sign, give me the message, and it's easier for me to it's like preparing or priming myself to get that download of information that is so helpful. So yeah. And one thing that I started doing is I actually do that every morning now, is like before I get out of bed, I lay in bed and I will say, okay, angels and guides, thank you for providing me guidance this morning. I'm ready to receive it. And because I thought, let's just make it really clear. Let's just make it really clear that, like we don't need to meditate on a lily pad forever. You can give me signs. I will pay attention. So, but I think for me, that's been something that's just been really helpful. Because it also reminds my brain, hello, we're, we're going to look out for how things make me feel and signs. I'm a big believer in signs. So it just kind of like gets my brain ready for all of that.
Yeah. But that also goes with trusting yourself because those signs you don't see them whenever you're sitting there, whenever you feel like none of it makes sense. And I think that's the biggest thing is like we get so how does that make sense? I have this really cool business idea and it doesn't make sense to other people. And that's the biggest thing. It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And then that's where our people pleasing comes in because we feel like we're going to have to over explain why we've chose to do something.
And I think that's also like when you get an idea like that won't make sense to other people. Like I didn't tell any of my friends at the time that I got that message that we were moving to Texas because I thought it would sound bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also important to, like, if you get an idea that maybe that's something outside of the box, like, don't go sharing that with everybody and their mother because they're just going to be a Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
Instead, just go do the thing and then let them chirp and talk about it later. Because I know when I did move from California to Texas, there were people that talked about it. And I heard about it from other people. I'm like, well, I guess you weren't my friend because you didn't know I was moving and you wanted to talk about me after the fact. So yeah, I think that it's really important to, like you were saying, trust yourself that whatever signs you're receiving, whatever messages you're getting, it's for your highest good.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I have to remind myself all the time. I don't see the whole path, right? Like we just see like one step, two steps in front of us. That's it. And I was talking with my husband about this the other day, and I said we were talking about that conversation in the car, and he goes, "Yeah, I thought you were crazy," and I was like, "It did seem crazy." Because I literally just blurted out, we're going to move to Texas. And I was like, I don't even know where that came from. So it
Mm-hmm.
did sound crazy. But looking back on it, it has been the best thing for our family. And, today was Cameron's first day as a sophomore. I forgot to get a picture. I always try to get a picture, but he goes to a small school and he just loves it. And he has this great group of friends that they hang out together. Like, and I was thinking about it. If we stayed in California, we would not have that same experience. And so everything has led me here, just like everything has led you here. But sometimes we can forget things can work out for our highest good. And just because you have this idea that seems bonkers doesn't mean that like it is crazy or you're going to end up living under a bridge somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's been it's been beautiful watching you I've only got to know you for 2 years, but just how much you've helped the women around you and you've been such a light. And we really, what we have as far as like our circle is something that I just want every woman to feel, because there's no competition. Everybody's trying to, help each other get to the next level. And it's something that, it's like a prayer that I hope that every woman gets to experience, because everyone says, trust your, whatever's coming up. And then yesterday I had a conversation with somebody and I was telling them about certain clients and stuff. And she said, oh, that's a mirror. And I'm like, oh, that I didn't want to hear that. But it's so true, like the people that we bring in. And so it's just confirmation being with you and the other ladies, just how much our growth has expanded. And it's so exciting to see where we're going.
Sometimes we do feel like the weird kid, but I
Mhm.
think it's important to acknowledge that, you know, part of trusting your intuition is also being less rigid, is that piece, and that piece of friendship that you talked about. It's also goes hand in hand with being vulnerable. Because
Mhm.
if you don't know somebody at all, you will not end up being good friends with them. Like, because you have to have some type of a connection there, right? So I think it's the two things are related to being open, being vulnerable, and then also listening to your own inner knowing. Because if you're not listening, this is the thing that I think about all the time. If you're not listening, after a while, are your guides like, this guy is not even, this guy's not even listening to what I'm saying. I'm not going to send any more signs, right? I don't know if that is how it works, but I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, how exasperated are the people on my spirit team? But there's a sense of like vulnerability there, right? And tapping into that inner knowing and asking for guidance. And also, like you mentioned, like cultivating friendships. And so at some point in time, and it has taken me a long time to like loosen the grip of like trying to, okay, I'm supposed to be doing this, I'm supposed to be doing this, and instead just like, okay, just like listening, just being a little bit more calm. And, we were talking right before we started about like nervous system, which is like everything.
Mhm.
And to me, it all connects together. Even if, I say all of those things in one sentence, it may not seem like it does.
I also think like that really goes back to social media and being vulnerable. That's where you're going to make those connections also with your audience, because they're going to be able to see the stories just like with friendships, because you
Mm,
are building a relationship.
yeah. Oh, that's so important to remember. And the thing about where I think a lot of people lose sight with not only business but with life is like, you think about, we could go so many different ways. Like for a long time I worked in corporate. I was trying to get the promotion and da 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 da. And what I didn't realize is, if I would have instead listened to myself, if I would have just tried to cultivate good friendships, good relations with people, that maybe one of those people would be like, hey, you may be suited to do this.
Mhm.
I know this person, let me introduce you. And life would have changed completely. But instead, I was like still holding on to this persona who I thought was the person that I was supposed to be.
Yeah, isn't it so freeing though?
Yeah, 110%. Yeah.
And that's where I think also social media can be fun, because you're not overperforming, to fit in to whatever all those checks and boxes and stuff. Just show up as being you. Like, I don't believe there's a special checklist. I do believe there's a strategy, but there's a strategy with everything in life. You don't just, you kind of get your feet wet trying to learn about somebody. Do you even want to be in their space? And
Mm,
trusting yourself and, leaving whenever it says it's time to leave. I mean, we've all been
yeah.
to places later than we want to be. And we're like, okay, it's time to go. Like your son the other night, whenever he wanted to leave Top Golf, it was like, okay,
That's right. He was the
that's
first
on
one
his
to leave the
done.
party. Yeah.
I'm like, if we'd have only known, if we would have only trusted our gut when we were, what, 15?
I know. I know. This is why I say to my son all the time, I'm like, what does your gut say?
Yeah, not your mind.
Yeah,
Because your mind is like,
100%.
stay there with your friends because they're going to think you're silly for leaving.
Yeah. No, but he's pretty good about that. Like if there's one thing I'm really proud of, it's like He paves his own way, and he's always like, I don't care if they think I'm weird or whatever. He just does his own thing. What a gift to yourself if you can be like that and just
Mhm.
not care. Just be like, well, people are either going to like me or not,
Mhm.
and I'm just going to do my thing.
Yeah. I Yeah. He's such a wise soul. I mean, I hear all your stories about him, and he reminds me a lot of my Cameron because I just look back and I'm like, if I'd have done, like I had a baby at my son's age of a divorce and or trying to figure out how to get one, and yeah, and he's planning on going to, the next phase of college and stuff. It's just so cool. And I think that that is such a big part of our story. And we're setting such a big example for them of like, the sky is the limit. You do not need to sit in that 9 to 5 or whatever, whatever society has told you or you that you're led to believe.
Yeah. Well, and I think not only for our kids, but we should all try to set an example for just other people in
Mhm.
general. It's okay to completely do your own thing because if you're listening to your inner knowing,
Yeah.
that's
Who's
the
to
right
say
thing to
wrong?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one can argue with it because it's your story.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So before we bring it home, Billy Joe, what little nugget can you give people on following their inner knowing, trusting that information that's coming to them? What's the one little thing you would recommend?
I just think that the biggest deal is learning that voice it's there for a reason and just trusting it because what comes to me is it's that little girl that you had this idea and somebody said, oh no no no, we're not doing that, like
Mm,
that sounds crazy, and just kind of being kind to her like the other day whenever you had left me a message and you said, yeah, so I had a talk with my little inner people pleaser. I'm like, were you kind to her?
yeah.
Because it truly is. You have just been told to be quiet a lot. Sit there and be still. And I don't know if you were ever told be seen and not heard.
I wasn't told that, but I was told that I talk too much.
Yeah. And now we get to talk for a living.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And what's funny about that is my new business coach, she said to me, what's your business goal? And, I worked in the business arena for a really long time. And so, I can do a chart and read spreadsheets and do all the things. But I told her, I said, my goal is to get paid for my words.
Mhm.
And that's it. That's my business goal.
Yeah, but there's so much more than words. Like there's so much wisdom. And I always tell you, you have such a gift. I came to you for various reasons, like a lot of reasons. And your gift to teach people to trust themselves, but also hold the space that what you're feeling is normal. And that is I mean, it would have been really awesome if we'd all had that space as a little kid, We wouldn't have sat there and waited
Yeah.
46 years to be able to say, all of this is all here for a reason. Like, I don't have to be quiet. I don't like, if I
Mhm.
take the leap and I do the thing, the only person I have to answer to is myself.
Isn't that beautiful? And to think that really, and here's how I think of things. Like, I always think about how I can get back to the sassy little 5-year-old that I was, right? Because she had the answers, she knew,
Hmm.
right? But somehow we listened to all these people who told us what our path should be rather than listening to ourselves. And society has a lot of expectations on people in terms of, you should have this and that and whatever. But somehow I think the answer is always to get back to that sassy little girl that's inside of you because she knows.
And I think about, when we were in class, it was always like you should probably do better so you can go to honors. So you can be that person. And for me, I did not love school. Like it was not something that came naturally to me. And like I look back and I see a lot of the reasons why, but it's like we're constantly being told like you could do better. Like you could be with Sally who is getting a scholarship and she's going to go to college, and then you always kind of hold that inner guilt of like I didn't. It just isn't, it's not me.
Yeah.
And so that kind of carries on out your life of like, you just maybe didn't excel in certain things, but you were a really great friend and you had all this amazing wisdom. Like I've always said, I'll take somebody with common sense over book smart. Like I mean, if we get lost, I want somebody that's going to be able to help me get out of it. But yeah, I just think about the conditioning and I can go down a whole rabbit hole that's, all the confinement and stuff that we are being conditioned to in life.
Yeah. By everybody, even by the government. I mean, like, let me get my tinfoil hat out and we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, I think that for me, the biggest lesson is that what if we already have all the answers in us, but like, what if we already have all the answers? You don't have to go ask your mama, your boyfriend, or whoever. And what if we believed ourselves and trusted ourselves? And then we're like, okay, I don't know where I'm going 10 steps from now, but I'm going to take one step in that direction. I think that things would unfold in a really beautiful way.
Yes, and they are. I mean, I just think that we all had to experience all of that. We just the road that we've experienced prior is where has led us to where we are today. And I don't think, I mean, we've got years of wisdom under our belt. What we're not going to go back and do.
Yeah, where you say note to self, maybe don't do that next
That was
time.
not a good idea. I don't recommend
Yeah.
that.
Billie Jo, I've loved having you on the podcast. Why don't you tell people what you're up to and how they can connect with you?
I am primarily on Facebook. That's kind of my favorite, that and Instagram. Something that has came to me after working with women for many, many years is that there's a visibility issue with many of them. And I don't want to call it an issue. It's more of a block, but they have incredible stories and they have amazing missions, but they're not showing up online. And so I had this I was 3 hour drive and God was like, you are going to build something out to help women feel like they have a blueprint to help them be seen, because you have the website and you have really awesome graphics and all these things, but the people are going to connect to you, especially if you're a coach. And I noticed it's actually a common thing that even coaches don't want to show up online, and you've got to make that connection. People want to know, where was the pivotal point in your life that has led you to this mission? Because more than likely that's what they're going through as well. And that's where they're going to connect with you. But I mean, just because you have a really cool quote, people are not. They'll think that that's really neat, but there's no connection going to be built. And so I have built this visibility blueprint, and I will walk through all your social media. We will go through and see where are the gaps that are keeping you from showing up online, and kind of build off of that so that way you feel confident in building content on your own. It's not something that I'm going to say like this is a long drawn out thing. I want to give you the tools so you feel confident to do social media on your own.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, because let's make things easy for ourselves. Yeah.
Have fun. Go out and show them that you did amazing things. And there's so many people sitting at home and they're looking for answers. Unfortunately, it's not behind like an AI video or a cool graphic. They want to know your story. And that's where I love storytelling. It's kind of been just something that's came natural to me. I love hearing people's stories, and I just feel like that is really the magic in getting you where you're wanting to go. It's kind of like the glue, that emotional aspect is kind of like where people are going to be attracted to. And that's where they're going to build that trust relationship. And then they will want to work with you. I mean, when you're making big investments, you've got to have some substance behind it. It's kind of like a friendship, like I said earlier.
The other day I was posting a graphic that I created with chat, but I wrote the words that went with the graphic. And I noticed that now it says like AI generated content, which I'm always like, I'm like, I'm just having chat take the bags out from under my eyes and like maybe make me look a little slimmer.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's necessarily AI generated, but
it's
kind of
doing that to even really good content that people are writing from the heart. So it's going to be a conversation that needs to be had, because, I mean, really great writers use the M dash. Like now they're terrified.
Yes. I switched to a semicolon myself. So
Same.
Billie Jo, thanks for being here. I've loved having you on the podcast. I'm going to put links below for how you can get in contact with Billie Jo, how you can work with her. She is a sweet soul that will do wonders for your business. So if you're someone who you're like, I need that social media person in my life, I need someone to help me with visibility, Billie Jo is your girl. All right, friends, make sure you like and subscribe and do all of the things so you can get my next video. I will see you next week on the podcast. Take care.
Bye.